Good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank Acomb, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on this Friday morning edition of Frankly Speaking. All 2 hours on the program. A little bit later on, we'll be talking with Shades, our old friend Shades from Tioga Downs. We're going to talk about Derby. Kentucky Derby. I worded that strange. Hey, I wanted to show you this. Oh, look at the virtual waves coming in. Look at, I want to show you, well, I guess I have to do it on the intro. Look at the beautiful cactus and succulent I won yesterday at the Corning City Republican get-together. Kept me up all hours of the night. It was well past my bedtime, like a rock and roll star. Around 7:30 it wrapped up. But I'm excited to finally have something at that end of the desk. I've got one quick thing to mention, and I'm going to mention it a few times later on in the program. But I cannot thank everybody enough who reached out yesterday and had such kind things to say about Dwayne Eddy, and had such kind things to say to me, and it really means a lot. If you missed the program yesterday, Dwayne Eddy did pass away at the age of 86 on Tuesday. We have a little tribute that we did on the program yesterday, playing a clip, or really the whole video, from his induction into the Steuben County Hall of Fame, and I thought it was a very nice video. You can find that at wydc-tv.com or on our Facebook page. Also there, because his birthday was last Friday, I had posted our interview together on this program, the full interview. And if that's something that you would like to see, please, by all means, go and check it out, either on our Facebook or at wydc-tv.com. So thank you again, and I do have a special treat to show you later on in memory of Dwayne Eddy. That'll be a little bit later on in the program. But let's get started with what has become a tradition now. But I can't promise this every day. But another example of why you need to know who you're voting for. We've brought up the super mayor out of Dolton, Illinois, quite a few times. Well, this is not an update on her, as she's being investigated by the FBI, we learn. This is about our embattled Monroe County District Attorney, Sandra Durley, who was very rude, for lack of a better term, to police officers trying to pull her over for going 55 in a 35. She was caught on body camera saying some very, well, first of all, there's that aspect of, do you know who I am, to it. There's then the name calling. You've heard all about it. We've talked about it. Well, she came out and she apologized. She said she was stressed. There was a lot of things going on, work, family issue, just stress, no apology, or that's not an excuse, no apologies, that type of thing. Now we learn that she will not resign after the body cam showed that she berated a police officer. She told local outlet NBC 10 that she had never considered resigning since the now viral incident. Quote, "I was elected to serve this community, and I will continue to serve this community. I have no excuse for what I did. If I could go back, I would do it totally differently. I'm agreeing to self-report to the grievance committee. I welcome any investigation. I will cooperate and will handle whatever punishment is handed down to me, because I truly, truly am sorry." Now, many have... I missed this part. Attorney General Letitia James questioned Durley's fitness to serve as district attorney. Interesting. Governor Hochul referred her to the Commission on Prosecutorial Conduct, which we learned has not had a case since its inception 3 years ago. So not really feeling lot's going to come out of that. But Sandra Durley will not resign. So yet another example of why it's best to know who you are voting for. And that's why we try to make it our goal on Frankly Speaking to get all the candidates that are willing to come on to be on the program, so that you can learn right along with me and the community about who, at the end of the day, you will pull the lever for. I know it's no longer pulling the lever. Who you will circle the dot and put into an electronic machine for. Now, obviously, we do have a lot of updates on college campuses. I know for some of you, it may be getting a little old, but it shouldn't be. And I say that not to downplay that, boy, this is getting crazy and it's kind of overwhelming to keep hearing about it. It's not to downplay that. But it's also the importance that I've mentioned so many times of making sure we realize what's going on, not just on college campuses, but in society. And we talked about it yesterday, which another bunch of comments I received, and thank you, about how fun the interview was with former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. But like we talked about, the fact that it is now considered a major part of the voting bloc in the Democrat Party, this anti-Israel sentiment, the political implications are something that are very important to consider as well. So we'll talk about all of those. We do have some positive stories amidst it all. We're also going to talk a little bit here about Trump, about Biden. I do have a local issue. I'm going to pose this question to you early. Sometimes I do that, and then we don't always get to the story later on, though that is never my intention. The question being asked by Capital Confidential, and I'm going to ask it to you, the viewer. What if Cuomo challenged Hochul in the 2026 race for governor? I will say that when it comes to pure down and dirty politics, former governor, now disgraced former governor, Andrew Cuomo was a better down and dirty politician. Governor Hochul, you wanted to say it was a learning curve, but it's been a little too long to be a learning curve. So kind of like a Kamala Harris, where you say, well, you can only expect a certain kind of speech level to her, meaning like a political speech. Where with Harris, it's kind of a word salad. With Hochul, it's a lot of, I don't know what's the word I want to use? I mean, I recall when she was talking about shoplifters, and she said, "Shoplifters, your days are numbered, or your days are over," or something like that. And it was just very awkward, very trying too hard in debate in high school kind of feeling to it. So the question is, Cuomo decides to run against Hochul in 2026. What do you think? Also, another question I'll pose to you early on in the program, just to get started here, get the juices flowing this morning. There is some scuttlebutt that former President Trump is going to meet this weekend with potential VP candidates. Who do you think, who would you like to see? I know I've asked this question before. Who would you like to see be his VP pick? And I will say, let's get on a tangent here for a moment. I do believe this is a very important pick. As a rule, the VP pick, it has significance, but it's not a make or break scenario. It's helpful sometimes, it's hurtful sometimes. I think if you look at a John McCain, it was helpful to him to have a Sarah Palin to kind of ease the pain for some conservatives to vote for him. But then you have someone like Joe Biden for Obama, who is just kind of a elder statesman, was the term they were using to offset Barack Obama's inexperience. Remember, he had not even finished a full term as in the Senate, excuse me. So there's important parts of the VP, but a lot of times if you look at Paul Ryan with Mitt Romney, that was, Paul Ryan didn't even win his home state. So I don't think that was the best pick. But in this case, I do feel it's a very important pick to get some people, and which I do think this is overhyped, but to an extent, the Nikki Haley supporters that are having trouble supporting Trump. Now, I think many of those Nikki Haley supporters are Democrats, are people that would not vote for Trump no matter what, would not vote for the Republican no matter what, trying to kind of throw people off and go for Nikki Haley. But there are some that are probably struggling because of the tweets or the Truth Social or whatever. Maybe they've been... there's an aspect to it, and it's very unfortunate, and it shows how easy it is sometimes for the left or the media to win, because they'll say, I don't want any more of the chaos. Well, the chaos was the nonstop coverage by the media of a non-scandal every single day. So the media wins when that's the attitude. But anyway, again, I promised this was going to be a tangent. I do think there is an opportunity here to pick a VP candidate that can, number one, go out on the trail while the president is in one of the numerous trials that he's in. But I also think it can shore up some vote that maybe right now is on the fence, saying, I don't like this lawfare. I don't like things like trying to take him off the ballot and suggesting he's a threat to democracy by people that are a threat to democracy. They might not like that, but they're still not comfortable with the personality. That maybe that VP pick could make it a little easier on them. So who would you personally like to see? No statement is too outlandish. I'll try to get to all of them. So as I mentioned, we are going to talk about college campuses when we get back. Shades from Tioga Downs will be joining us towards the end of the second hour. And as I said, I've got a special, I think you're going to really like this. I've got I don't know if you'd call it a tribute, but a special in remembrance to Dwayne Eddy a little bit later on. But right now we do have to take a short break, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we're just getting started, so stay right there. Our beautiful view of Market Street here in Corning, as we proudly broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio here on Market Street in Corning. Already receiving some comments, and I've got to say, I think this one's going to be a little controversial to the viewer who sent it in. I can't believe I'm saying this, but even Cuomo would be better than Hochul, but he should come with a term limit next time. We got a lot of people out walking this morning. That's interesting. I haven't had enough time to dissect that and think about that. Okay, and I'm not putting this on you, the viewer. I couldn't ever accept that because of what he did with the nursing homes. And obviously I want to vote for him no matter what, or Hochul. But so putting that aside, I don't know what to think. Boy, that's a brain tease. I will put this out there. I'm going to do the political answer. Let me put this out to the viewer so I don't have to give an answer. Even Cuomo would be better than Hochul, but he should come in the term limit next time. Okay, other comments coming in. It doesn't matter who the Republican nominee is. When the Democrats run the media, school system, Hollywood, and major networks, any Republican will be destroyed and set up for failure. Till Republicans learn to fight fire with fire, they will always be the weaker and less effective party. There's a lot to dissect there, too. Yes, that is what I think a lot of people underestimate. Because they were saying, well, not Nikki Haley. If we got Nikki Haley, and then this is not to knock Nikki Haley. This is where I heard it the most, though. Nikki Haley, if we got her in there, it wouldn't be the chaos of Trump. It would be a good, old-fashioned presidential race. No, it wouldn't. They would destroy her, too. They would attempt to destroy her, too. That's what happens. And to this viewer's point about the school system, we're clearly seeing that. And it starts well before college, but we're clearly seeing what that ends up reaping, what that brings, that control over the school system, the education, maybe is the way to word it. I don't know what the answer would be, how Republicans learn to fight. I think there are fighters out there. I think there are also Republicans, and this is just the history of Republicans, that like being on the B team, like being on JV, so that they can say the speeches, they can give the bluster, but at the end of the day, they don't really have a say in what's being done, so they don't have to make the tough decisions. I do believe there's a part of the Republican Party historically that's always been that way. In a normal world, this is about the VP pick as well from a viewer. In a normal world, Ron DeSantis would be the best pick. I kind of like to see Vivek Ramaswamy, but in this PC reality, I think he's going to need a woman like Marjorie Taylor Greene, but not Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yeah, I'm not sure about that because I actually read a piece today, and we may get to it a little bit later on. And it's by anonymous sources, and you know what my thoughts are on about anonymous sources, that sometimes I think they're used by some outlets when there are no anonymous sources. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. They said that obviously Kristi Noem is out. They also said that Vivek Ramaswamy is out as well. But again, take it with a lot of grains of salt. Ron DeSantis, I think, would have been the best pick. I like, and to your point about picking a woman, that had not been on that short list that they were mentioning, and I can't remember who put it out. On the short list, there was not a woman on there, and that kind of surprised me because Elise Stefanik's name was being thrown around. Kristi Noem's was for a while. There was a few others. So your thoughts. We're opening this all up to you, the viewer, this morning. Another comment from a viewer. I think sometimes that Governor Hochul may be the worst governor that New York State has had, but we'll never forget the unforgivable way Cuomo handled COVID. Exactly. That would be my thoughts on that too. I appreciate that. Okay. To double back on about the Marjorie Taylor Greene statement, unless she backs off trying to get rid of the speaker, I think the damage has been done there. But perhaps not. She wasn't on that list, but that doesn't mean anything because it is a list compiled of anonymous sources. Another question. The reason I'd like to see a woman is because I'd like to see a strong woman debate the VP. That is a very good point. That would be a very interesting debate. Harris not known for her debating skills. These comments coming in. Thanks, folks. Keep them coming in. This is great. I didn't even ask what should be the biggest question for all of you, the easiest question for you to make your Derby picks. There they are. Saturday is the Derby. We're going to be talking to Shades from Tioga Downs a little bit later on. So who do you like in the Derby? And I'll keep that up for a little bit. Some interesting names there. You do see one scratch with Encino. But those are the numbers. Those are the horses. And those are the odds for tomorrow's 150th running of the Kentucky Derby. So we're going to have a little fun with that this morning on Frankly Speaking. All right. So as I keep that up on the screen, just long enough for you to see, they had over 200 arrests at the UCLA campus. I don't know if you've seen the photos, the destruction, the chaos. To preserve campus safety and the continuity of our mission, early this morning we made the decision to direct UCPD and outside law enforcement officers to enter and clear the encampment. Those who remained in camp last night were given several warnings and were offered the opportunity to leave peacefully with their belongings before officers entered the area. Ultimately, about 300 protesters voluntarily left, while more than 200 resisted orders to disperse and were arrested. Another question I will pose to you. Do you buy into, and I say buy in sounds biased, do you believe the reporting that it is outside agitators? Because if you look at it, they're saying nearly half. Okay, nearly half are outside agitators. That means there's, activists and like that. Get that. That still means over half are the students. So we can't downplay what is happening on college campuses, what the professors and faculty are teaching these young, impressionable minds that demand all the luxuries of life while being involved in a revolution. So overall, more than 2,000 people have been arrested on campuses since the protest began. And keep this in mind, when the media covers it this way, when politicians talk about it this way, it's not about the violent anti-Semitic protests. That's not why they're being critical. They're being critical because police were called to make arrests. Think of that. And they go through some of the areas where, 30 arrested at Portland State, University of Pennsylvania. They're bringing in more police resources, these type of things. We're not going to go through all the numbers on this. We honestly don't have the time. I do think it's getting, and this was, I was waiting for the coverage on this. NYPD officer fired his gun, or her gun, I'm not sure. I don't think it listed a name, in Columbia University's Hamilton Hall this week. Dangerously close, and it was an accident. It was dangerously close to we talked about Kent State the other day. I'm not trying to compare these. It's not comparable. I know they're trying to. But at the same time, the statement says the officer has a firearm that is equipped with a flashlight, and he was illuminating the area to find the best way to navigate through the barricade area. The officer accidentally discharged his firearm, causing a single round to be discharged. Oof. Now, anti-Israel mob was charging cops in Portland. Did you see this? With garbage can shields. Yes, it sounds as fierce as it looked. It's the charge of the trash brigade. Anti-Israel protesters at Portland State University burst from the campus library Thursday morning in a ragtag group of bicycle helmets and makeshift shields fashioned from trash bins during a crackdown by police. But despite their battle cries, very reminiscent of Braveheart, they were quickly thwarted by waiting cops. Some managed to scurry away and avoid arrest. Footage appeared to show while others were grabbed and slammed to the ground while attempting to ram through a line of cops. I know we laugh at some of this, but it's really not laughable. I mean, it is because there's such an entitlement there. There's such a delusion of grandeur by these protesters, but you've also got to remember what they are protesting for. The destruction of Israel, the destruction of America, to end police. And the media is really playing right along with the idea that the problem is the police presence and not the anti-Semitic hate that is being spewed. And I should mention, yesterday, President Biden did give a speech finally on this. Finally talking about it. The last time he talked about it, he said there's basically good people on both sides scenario. So he finally gives a speech yesterday. Did you know that the White House is supportive of free speech? Because if you didn't, you do know that now. And you knew it when you heard the press secretary the day before. Another wave, thank you. But let's talk about this positive note before we go to break. Oh, wow, because I'm running really late. No, I'm going to save it for the break because I'm running really, really late. Stay with us. I'm having fun talking to you already. We're getting such great comments coming in. Keep them coming in. And we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Another comment from a viewer. Oh, that's the wrong one. There we go. As we talk about the Kentucky Derby. If fierceness runs in the Derby the way he won the Florida Derby, it'll be one to remember. Jockey Johnny V didn't even ask him to run. Yes, and if you look at the odds, that would speak to that. Going out 5-2, and this is yesterday's morning line, so I'm not sure how they've changed, but there's a lot of long shots in there. The next closest is 3-1 with Sierra Leone, which is a good name. So it is going to be an interesting. And then Catching Freedom, it looks like, which is a good name. Speaking of Catching Freedom, Rutgers students countered the anti-Israel agitators on campus by waving an American flag and chanting USA. This is reminiscent of the students that protected the American flag. They now have, what did I hear today? That country star John Rich said that he would play at the party. Last I knew, when we talked with Joe Semplinsky yesterday, the GoFundMe for them to have a huge party was $200,000 for protecting that American flag against the anti-Israel protesters trying to wave the Palestinian flag. So last I knew, so I'm so sure it's much higher than that. And John Rich saying he'd play for free. Pretty cool. But this is a different group. This is at Rutgers University. The anti-Israel protesters were countered by a large group of patriotic students waving the American flag and chanting USA. As the anti-Israel group yelled, "Free, free Palestine," and "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," the patriotic group could be heard repeatedly chanting USA, USA. At a later point during the demonstration, a couple of people within the anti-Israel group began instructing their protesters to link up to form a circular human chain in front of the students chanting in favor of America. It's all so cliche. As the people were linking up, a woman with their group came over a bullhorn and said, "We are not protesting. We have to clean up. We have to leave." So I'll clear what she said after that. Okay. Anyway, chants of USA. Some singing students could be seen holding their hands over their heart. It's nice to hear stories like that. Oh, wow. Comment from a viewer. It was over $460,000 last night. That is going to be a party that everybody wants to get invited to. Can you imagine that? $460,000. Good for them. That goes to show you when people talk about this is America. These are people protesting. We know there's a violence aspect to the destruction. But as the former congressman was saying yesterday, this kind of thing doesn't play in not even rural America, in middle America, everywhere in America. Yes, college students and faculty and professors, they're in their own bubble, their elite bubble. The person that's working 9 to 5, the person that's going maybe 2-3 jobs just so they can have groceries for their family, this isn't working for them. And when they see people still respecting the flag, still being patriotic, that's how they show their gratitude. They say thank you, because that's what we want to see. It goes back to what I've talked about so often on this program, about community, faith, patriotism. We want that. That's the kind of thing, really, why so many ended up supporting Trump, because the freedom, for lack of a better word, to feel proud of your country again, to be able to say, I'm proud to be an American, to quote Lee Greenwood. That's been missing for a long time, and it does feel good when you see chants of USA, and you see, you want to get the goosebumps and the chills when you hear the national anthem play at a sporting event or wherever you may be. So Colombia said that the protesters arrested, nearly half of them not affiliated with schools. I circled here nearly. That means that over half were affiliated with the school. So keep that in mind. I do believe there's outside agitators. I just think that it works a lot better for these schools to say, well, it's not us. It's not us indoctrinating these kids with this kind of anti-Semitic worldview. It's the agitators. And they have pieces time and time again. What to know about outside agitators, cops say, are co-opting Colombia protest. If you want to find out more, we can talk about it. Just text me, but I think we should move on. The Bernard student, who's been twice arrested at Colombia protests, so she's got to be the coolest one. She probably gets the most likes and the most shares and the most TikTok whatevers. She refuses to say on whether Israel has the right to exist. Her name, Marie Adele Grosso. She's 19 years old, and she's studying sociology and human rights. Now, think about that with human rights, what she's being taught when she can't even say whether Israel has a right to exist. In an interview with leading Britain's Conversation host Ben Kentish, said, do you think Israel has a right to exist? She said, I believe Palestinians have a right to equal rights. I believe Palestinians have a right to return to their homelands. Since 75 years ago, Palestinians have been systematically forced out of their homes. I'm so sorry. I have a longer answer to this question, she responded. It's a more complicated question. There's a difference between believing that Jewish individuals should be in or have a right to be in Palestine and believe that Israel as a country should be allowed to continue what they are doing. And I believe the land is Palestine. So Kentish again pushed her, asking if she believes, quote, the world's only Jewish country should exist. She argued that the existence of a Jewish state like Israel allows other countries to perpetrate anti-Semitism within their own borders. Okay. So again, he asked, and good for him for holding her to the fire. So you believe Christian countries should exist and Muslim countries should exist, but the world's only Jewish country shouldn't exist? And she said, no, there's a difference between a country having a predominantly population and a country labeling themselves as a Jewish country. And this is when we get into the more disturbing aspects to all of this and the anti-Semitism at Rutgers. Rivka Schaefer, a freshman that goes to Rutgers, was told, quote, Hitler would have loved you by pro-Palestinian demonstrators during a very, very disturbing video. The protester also compared Hamas fighting Israel to the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, a Jewish resistance that opposed Nazi Germany during the Holocaust. Schaefer had been a target previously when some protesters made anti-Israel flyers with their face plastered on them. Imagine that. how many times were we always lectured, especially during Trump, that love trumps hate? It's all about love and hate. The new love is suggesting that Hitler would have loved you to a Jewish student? Is that the love that we've been lectured about so often from the left? It goes back, I know, here we have, if you have a scorecard, it goes back to the article that the new left is, or thinks Hamas is good and that swastikas are woke. And the argument about the swastikas was because it was on a synagogue, graffitied on a synagogue, and this person believed it was in the name of ending genocide, that it was once a symbol of hate, now it's a symbol of good. Can you imagine that? Anti-Israel protesters arrested at Columbia. That protester declared October 7th one of the greatest days of my life. Rudy Ralph Martinez, who's 32, was among the 282 protesters and agitators who were cuffed and hauled away. Mr. Martinez declared that October 7th, the Hamas terror attack, was one of the greatest days of my life. He was smirking as he described it. Long live the resistance. Wow. More on this when we come back. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. Again, thank you so much for joining us as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Victims of the October 7th attacks are suing a radical U.S. Muslim group that admits funding anti-Semitic student protests around the country. We've talked about the funding and the tents and the food. The group of 9, who include survivors and bereaved relatives of the massacre, slapped the National Students for Justice in Palestine and its parent body, American Muslims for Palestine, with a lawsuit for unspecified damages, accusing it of spreading and even inspiring Hamas propaganda. Their suit turns the spotlight on Justice for Palestine, National Students for Justice in Palestine, which has set up chapters in 250 campuses in the U.S. and Canada. They quietly admitted this week to sending the campus groups money for the wave of protests which have engulfed American colleges since October 7th. Okay, but Jamal Bowman said the so-called pro-Israel students told me anti-Semitism at Columbia was overblown. So you're telling me the pro-Israel students who are really putting their safety on the line when they go out and wave the Jewish flag, they're coming up to Mr. Bowman, Representative Bowman, and saying, hey, just so you know, anti-Semitism on campus overblown. He said this on MSNBC's Alex Wagner tonight. I also met with so-called pro-Israel students. Why is it so-called pro-Israel students? But anyway, when I was there, just to hear about the anti-Semitism that they had experienced, and they told me it has been minimal. It has been overblown by the media. We have been uncomfortable, but we don't feel unsafe. Well, okay, I don't accept him at his word, but I will say, wasn't there a time when you weren't supposed to make anybody feel uncomfortable? Wasn't, if a conservative came on campus and made a student feel uncomfortable, that was akin to violence. Remember? But anyway, but we didn't feel unsafe. This is what I was told by them. And my goal as a former educator, as a father of 3, is to remind us all that Columbia is an institution of higher learning. It's a place for critical thinking, critical dialogue, critical discussion that makes us uncomfortable, but moves us forward. It has to move that forward, because that would be the excuse of, well, that doesn't speak for conservatives going to college campuses and giving a lecture, because that doesn't move us forward. So they can't make you uncomfortable. They can't make you think and critically think. The hypocrisy in these people. Our kids are not being allowed to do it because we are over-militarizing our college campuses. And to me, that's completely unacceptable. So they can't think outside the box because of the police, according to Mr. Bowman. And he says there needs to be more protests like Columbia. This was also on Alex Wagner tonight. Jamal Bowman, stated that the encampments on Columbia were completely peaceful, and some of the images that we saw from UCLA and other places made it look like a bunch of disorder. But the majority of these protests are peaceful. When you send in hundreds of military-dressed law enforcement officers into a college, that brings the disorder and that brings the chaos. So it is the police. The police are the problem. This is the new strain of the left. Keep it in mind. But there's a piece, and we're not going to talk about this all morning. I know. Because we have so many other things to get to, but it is so important. Andrea Pizer has a piece at the New York Post today where she says, as a Jew, I am terrified about what America has become. It's a sad day across the United States and abroad as whiny, privileged college students and thrill-seeking provocateurs, egged on by leftist professors, the mainstream media, and numbskull politicians, foment pro-terrorist, anti-Jewish violence. They prove once again that no place is safe for Jews. And she goes through her family's history and the history of the Jewish people. It is a really, really good piece if you have a moment to find it yourself at the New York Post. Andrea Pizer. And she talks about the hypocrites. All are parroting uncritically Hamas claims of death and suffering. That is a problem that the media is involved in, as well as politicians. They and others, and she points to, Harris, Kamala Harris, AOC, people like that, Chuck Schumer. They and others are all but excusing the murders and hostage-taking of Israeli civilians and people who had the misfortune of traveling to the Holy Land last October. And all are fanning the flames of campus unrest and unfettered attacks on Jews. We thought America was a land where Jews might live without fear of oppression, violence, and scapegoating. We thought we were free. Boy, we were wrong. That's Andrea Pizer at the New York Post. And Douglas Murray has a piece as well, right before we go to break, that says, college idiots calling for intifada have no idea how many innocents have died from that word. And I understand the knee-jerk to call them idiots and morons like he does. I get that. But I do think there's a seriousness that has to be leveled at this, because I think as conservatives we too often laugh off these type of things. Let's look at these crazy college kids. Look at these idiots and what they're being taught. But you see, it's not just staying on college campuses. If the students at Columbia didn't know what they're calling for when they call for intifada, perhaps they will now. And he gives a list of what it really means. Okay, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. And we are back with Frankly Speaking. Here is a comment from a viewer. And if you're just joining us, the question was asked, what if Cuomo runs against Hochul in 2026? It was a question posed by, and I can't remember where the article was from. But yes, what would it be like? What would you... Here it is. Finally, I found it. Should have had it right here in front of me. I knew I was going to talk about it. What if Cuomo challenged Hochul in the 2026 race for governor by Capitol Confidential? And we've had some back and forths, and one viewer commented that they couldn't believe they're saying this, but Cuomo might be better than Hochul, and we had that discussion. Here is a comment from a viewer. With regard to former Governor Cuomo, I'm sure there isn't any chapter in the governor's handbook that covers pandemics. Did he make a mistake? Probably, but that's why they put erasers on the end of pencils. Did people die in nursing homes? Yes, but did they truly do from COVID? I've heard stories that insurance companies were notorious for paying more on claims for COVID deaths than natural causes. It is tragic that individuals in nursing homes passed during this period. But if an octogenarian dies now in a nursing home, will they say that individual died from COVID? With regards to former Governor Cuomo, he was a stronger leader than Governor Hochul and followed through on things. Here's what I would say about the issue with the nursing homes. Even when it was brought to his attention that it was a very wrong-headed and tragic decision to put COVID-positive patients in nursing homes, even though there was availability, you remember the ship that President Trump sent to New York, etc. Even though there's these much smarter options, he did not stop. And I think there's also the cockiness of him taking the victory lap while that was going on. So I think it's more than just a mistake. And I do think it's hard to deny that during that time when so many were passing away from COVID, not just in nursing homes, to suggest that the majority or even a small minority of the patients that died in a nursing home, that it was made up, that it was COVID or put down as COVID. I don't know. I don't think, if that is the case, I don't think that is a majority number. I don't think that is the number that would excuse what happened. I could never forgive, for lack of a better term, not that he cares, the governor, former governor, for that decision, because it was brought to his attention. It just at face value, if that is your judgment call as governor, you're not prepared to be a governor. I'll put it that way. If your brains and your intelligence tells you, yes, let's put COVID positive patients in with the most vulnerable, then no, I don't believe that you have the mental capability to be governor of any state. So that's what I would say if I'm weighing in on this, but I do appreciate the comment. So keep them coming in. Any other viewer that would like to comment on that as well. There's a couple of things to get to more with college campuses. We are going to talk about other issues. Bob Martin writes, Tuesday night's Columbia protest clearing restored my pride as a cop in the NYPD. He spent 32 years as a member of the department, and this is a piece at New York Post. Pride in the fact that my immediate family, dad, brother, son, and I, have a combined total of just under 100 years of service with the finest. Pride of having worked with and for some of the most exceptional men and women I've ever met. And he goes on and talks about this kind of, this down feeling that he had for so long, right around the time of the George Floyd protest and defund the police movement and all that. He said, seeing the always outstanding emergency service unit gaining entry, followed by the community response team scaling the mobile adjustment ramp system to gain access to Columbia Hamilton Hall's second floor, bypassing the first floor barricades, had me thinking the NYPD, the one I knew and served, was back. The taking down of the Palestinian flag, pardon me, on the CCNY's campus flagpole and raising of the American flag also brought a smile, I'm sure, to many an old cop's face. It sure did to mine. Great job, guys and gals. That's nice, isn't it? A TikTok influencer, which I know that's where you try to get your information, but this is very important. A TikTok influencer torches very harmful social media platform for fueling anti-Israel campus riots. As we talk about the banning of TikTok or being forced to sell from China, but also think of it as a social media aspect to it. As we've been saying for so long on this program, that so much of these protests are about getting the most likes, getting the most views, showing that you are on the right side of the protest, meaning sadly, the anti-Semitic side. So TikTok influencer, says it's very harmful. That's where a lot of this, going back to the idea that it's a fad, it's fueling this because kids are addicted to TikTok. They watch it and wow, look, the cool kids with the most views are out there tearing down the American flag and putting up the Palestinian flag, saying very anti-Semitic things, getting violent, etc. And it spreads, and it continues to spread. I got to take the last break of this hour. We are going to wrap this up. We may have a little bit more to talk about it in the next hour. So stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, last break of hour number 1 right now. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. Even Al Sharpton on the Morning Joe said that Democrats are losing the moral high ground by not condemning these protests. Yeah, it's hard to listen to people lecture for so long about love trumps hate and love this and understanding and safe spaces and this when they are spewing this anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas message. I don't want to go through the whole because it's a long, lengthy piece. But Sharpton said, let me say this. The politics of that. What is being robbed by them not doing that, Joe? Where you and I agree. How do Democrats, how do all of us on that side say January 6th was wrong? If you can have the same pictures going on college campuses, you lose the moral high ground. Mika Brzezinski said, good heavens. I don't like uses the Lord's name in vain. Why not? She don't make a parallel to January 6th. And Scarborough said that has happened, though. That has happened. Why can't you make that comparison? Look at the difference in coverage, first of all. But anyway, we're not going to get into all that. But you can't take the moral high ground on these issues. It's hard, it's going to be very hard to be lectured. With people talking about love and peace in their hearts and this, when we see what is happening on college campuses and very much a lack of condemnation for it. I mean, Biden yesterday, it was about anti-Semitism, but also anti-Muslim. I mean, we're a civil society and order must prevail, he said. They asked if these protests would change his mind about the American policy in the Middle East. He simply said no. I don't know. It's almost like CNN, Stephen Collinson, and others are saying to Biden, you better rethink it. Michael Moore said it in no uncertain terms. You better rethink it, because this is a major part of the Democrat Party now if you're looking for votes at a time when you're very close. Most polls have Trump up. You better think about the people that you're losing, so you better cave on your support of Israel. As Stephen Collinson at CNN said, Biden cannot afford a boiling summer of protests. President Joe Biden can ill afford a long, hot summer of protests that comes to a boil in time for the Democratic National Convention in August and then bleeds into the final weeks of an already venomous clash with Donald Trump. So what are they saying? I mean, I really, well, first of all, I don't think it's helpful that Biden waited so long to talk about this. But what this is a wink, wink, nudge, nudge of you better cave on your support, and it's already a weakening support to Israel. You better cave to the demands of this voting bloc, this section, which is obviously a large section of the Democrat Party. You better give in to their demands if you want to win this. And Biden is a political beast. He has been his whole life. A vote does not matter. It's not about what you believe in or what you stand on or principles. It's about getting the vote at the end of the day. So he will change at the drop of a hat. The president said the American people are heard, but the president's re-election hopes may depend on whether his fractious political base begins hearing him. Like I said, it's a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You better change your direction. Senator Bernie Sanders said anti-war student protesters could be, now it's anti-war. So it's pro-Palestinian, now it's anti-war. Okay. The protest could be Biden's Vietnam. We'll talk a little bit about that when we come back. We do have a lot about Biden, a lot about Trump, a bunch of other issues as well. We posed a question earlier on the program. What if Cuomo were to run against Hochul in 2026? It's a question posed by a news outlet. Also, who do you like in the Derby? And also, who do you like as Trump's VP pick? So keep those comments coming in as we get ready to start hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to hour number 2 now. We're starting hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. You see my brand new cacti that I won at the Corning City Republican Party last night. There we go. Looking for the right button. Okay. Hour number 2. Thank you for joining us. A little bit later on in the program, we'll be talking with Shades from Tioga Downs. He'll be telling us, and you may recall him from the early days of the program, he's going to tell us what he likes for the Derby and what's going on this Saturday at Tioga Downs. Thank you for the comments coming in. One comment, because I asked who would you like to see for VP pick? DeSantis. Well, DeSantis kind of ruled that out in February, but I would say never say never. That would be, I think ideally, a lot of people thought that would be the pick, a year ago? Something like that. Maybe longer than that now. And, of course, that didn't play out. We have been talking about college campuses a little bit. We asked the question. There's not much more to add to it. What happens if Cuomo were to face Hochul in 2026? But first, quickly, and again, I said this at the very top of the program, but I know some of you join us at 7. Yesterday we talked at length about the passing of rock and roll legend, pioneer, Duane Eddy. And I thank you to everybody who reached out to, I guess, send their condolences. And you may have read a couple pieces online and some things that there is a group. Let me be very specific on that. There is a group working behind the scenes. It's not secretive, behind the scenes to get Duane Eddy recognized. We've been a little over a month, and I've got to say, really making great moves. As a matter of fact, the last time I talked with Duane was about the success that I felt we were having and how we were getting very close to having a few ideas. It's all very early in the stage, but we're really making some good headway. And we got the news, of course, just yesterday that 2 days ago, that Duane Eddy had passed at the age of 86. I want to be very outspoken on this. That does not change our goal moving forward to recognize Dwayne in the city of Corning. Make that very clear. And of course, that's just as a side note, because we all, I know I have. I spent most of yesterday listening to great Dwayne Eddy songs and thinking about him. And he's such a nice guy. And you heard my tribute yesterday. But the reason I'm bringing this all up, and again, thank you to everybody who did send their condolences. I really appreciate it. It was an honor of my life to get to know and become friends with Dwayne Eddy. So one of the things that our secret committee, it's not secret, has been thinking about. This is one of the, just to kind of get the word out. We want to get the word out about Dwayne Eddy, because I think so few people, for whatever reason, knew that he was born in our area, born in Corning, and then moved to Bath and Penn Yan, and throughout his whole career talked about his love for our area and promoted Corning throughout his whole career. So this is one of the ideas we came up with. And it's just to kind of raise awareness of who he is and his name. Wait till you see this. This is done by David Higgins. He's a part of the group. All right, here it is. Let's see if I'm going to do this right. How cool is that? Painted. That's painted by David Higgins. Isn't that amazing? You can see the size of there, as you know, the guests that we have. That's right around the area that they would be. So right now I have it looking that way. And if you're interested in seeing it or maybe getting a picture with it, I'm going to put it in the window of our studio here so people see it, because that's the goal, to get the idea, to spread, I should say, the idea, so people know that Dwayne Eddy was born in Corning. I'm amazed by that. It looks so great. Thank you for lending it to me, David Higgins, so I can put it in the window. Right now it's looking at me, so I could show you on the screen, but later on after the program, we'll have it looking the other way. If you want to come see it, take a picture, whatever the case may be. So thank you again to everybody who's been sharing their thoughts about Dwayne Eddy. It's meant a lot. All right, we got a lot to cover yet. As I mentioned, Bernie Sanders said that this could be Biden's Vietnam, meaning the protests on college campuses. In terms of his campaign, I'm thinking back, and other people are making this reference, that this may be Biden's Vietnam. Lyndon Johnson, in many respects, was a very, very good president. He chose not to run in '68 because of opposition to his views on Vietnam. I worry very much that President Biden is putting himself in a position where he has alienated not just young people, but a lot of the Democrat base in terms of his view on Israel and the war. Wow, there's a lot to dissect there. So what Bernie Sanders is admitting in this is this strain, unfortunately, of anti-Semitism, this kind of anger and hatred in certain circumstances of Jews and Israel. That is now a major part of the Democrat base. That's coming from Bernie Sanders. There's a leftist group, they're called the anti-Biden Vote Uncommitted rally. That when they went to the voting booth and they said just vote uncommitted. There was a rally in Maryland before the primary. We'll let you know what we hear about the success or failure of that campaign. College Democrat organizations issued a warning to Biden, just to speak to Bernie Sanders' point. The White House has taken the mistaken route of a bear hug strategy for Netanyahu and a cold strategy, I think that means Cold War strategy, for its own base and all Americans who want to see an end to this war. Each day that Democrats fail to stand united for a permanent ceasefire, like the permanent ceasefire that was in effect on October 6th, am I right? I think so. Two-state solution and recognition of a Palestinian state, more and more youth find themselves disillusioned with the party. Another just, hey, look out. We're not going to support you, Biden, unless you give in to our demands. And it's not just young kids. It's like Bernie Sanders and the Michael Moores and the others. It's the grown-ups offering their list of demands. Okay, did you see, moving away from the college campuses, that was my last little bit on that. I know I thought I would be able to get through all of it in the first hour. We just didn't have an opportunity. Before we switch gears into other topics this morning, I did want to remind you, just quickly, because we promoted this early on, don't forget the quilt show is going on starting today and tomorrow and Sunday. You see the times there. Quilts through the ages. Over 100 quilts on display. Demos, trunk show, quilt raffle, door prizes. There's going to be a gift shop. Just $5 for one-day admission. Multi-day pass, $10. And that's at the Heritage Village of the Southern Finger Lakes over on Pulteney Street in Corning. So I wanted to remind you of that. I know many people will find that very fun this weekend. So there we go. All right, we have a couple other announcements too. Oh, the other question I asked if you are just joining us. So we talked about Cuomo running against Hochul. We talked about who you liked as VP pick. We also asked, and we've had one response so far, who do you like when it comes to the Kentucky Derby? Those are the opening lines as of yesterday, the actual opening lines of the race and the order. Fierceness is the favorite, so let me know what you think. Now, giving you, and I'll keep that up on the screen for a little bit while I talk here. Talking about the two questions I posed at the very beginning of the show, let's give you a little bit more background on that. First of all, and we've had great responses so far. Thank you so much, everyone. What the question from Capital Confidential was, what if Cuomo challenged Hochul in the 2026 race for governor? What exactly will Andrew Cuomo do now? Maybe he doesn't even know. Yeah, he's written op-eds. He's been doing a lot more media. A steady stream of donors, get this, has continued to contribute to his campaign account since he stepped down. But Cuomo has announced no plans to seek office. Several give more than $100 to Cuomo each month, sometimes more often. But there are also plenty of one-offs from other folks. Cuomo still pays some of his former staff, but Cuomo has no campaign for him to be consulted on just yet. That doesn't mean he won't run for something, but what that something is has yet to be seen. Some have speculated maybe mayor of New York City. Some have speculated against the Hochul and elsewhere. It's been suggested he'll run for mayor. Others said he'll wait for 2016 and challenge Hochul. For now, his campaign account remains undeclared. Governor Hochul has said she plans to run for another term, though recent poll numbers show she might have to do more to win approval from voters in 2026. That's more than 2 years away, but Hochul was asked Thursday how she would feel, and then anyway, he got cut off after that. So there's your question of the day. The next question was about who Trump would pick as his VP. Trump said, I'll be picking, but probably not too much before the convention, which I happen to be having in the great state of Wisconsin. Trump has so far been coy in revealing details about his potential running mate. He has spoken favorably about a wide range of candidates. Now, behind the scenes, oh, hey, we got our guest here already. Behind the scenes, an anonymous source, good morning, I'm on the air, we'll be with you in a minute, okay? A source familiar with the conversation previously told the Post that Vivek Ramaswamy is almost definitely out of the running, and that's what someone commented earlier, while allies of the former president said South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem has no shot at this position after she recounted that 20-year-old story about killing her dog. Did you see that she came out, and I think it was yesterday, and suggested it was fake news, which I'm not really sure how you can suggest it's fake news when she decided to tell the story in her own autobiography. We may talk about that in a little bit. Bloomberg reported Thursday that the former president had narrowed his choices to 4 top contenders: Doug Burgum, oh, that's interesting, J.D. Vance, which his name's been thrown around a while, Marco Rubio, and Tim Scott. So there you go. There's your quick update on VP candidates, and you make your decision. Let me know who you like by commenting on the bottom of your screen. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to be talking to Shades, our good friend Shades from Tioga Down. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And this is the Steuben Senior Services Fund edition of the program. And we're being joined by our friend Shades. Shades, it's been a while. It's been almost a year.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back here, though, in Corning. It's always nice to come to Corning.
Yeah.
It's such a cool town. I love talking to you. So happy to be here.
Sorry to get you up so early.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's only an hour drive for me. So,
geez.
It's an easy drive. It's all highway.
It's beautiful. Beautiful scenic. So this is an exciting weekend. Is this opening weekend at Tioga Downs when it comes
We kick off, historically, we've always kicked off on Kentucky Derby Saturday, which is a nice day. It gets a crowd out there. You kind of feel the energy. So, we start Saturday, 5 p.m. post time. Big card, 14 races on the card. It's a big weekend. We probably could have more. We scaled down to 14. We have qualifiers before that, though, so I'll call 17 races that day.
Wow, so how many races do you get in before the Derby actually kicks off?
We're going to get 4 races in.
Okay.
We could probably squeeze 5 in, but with the, possible inquiries or objections.
Sure, you don't want to push it.
You don't want to push it. We don't want to risk it. We want to give people plenty of time to place their bets on the Derby, to look at the PPs. Even during the break, our analyst Derek and myself, we're going to talk Derby. So we're going to try to help the crowd out a little bit as well.
How do you keep your voice warmed up throughout the year? You've had this layoff.
Well, I mean, last 2 weeks we've called qualifiers.
So you got that.
I've been
kind
of ease back into it. But calling those, it's hard to call short fields though. Qualifiers usually have 4 or 5 horses.
Yeah.
This card is a good card. I mean, almost 9 horse fields over every race. So
oh wow.
It's easier though to call a big field than a small field.
Sure.
There's always something happening. When it's a small field, they don't move. It's the same order. You start telling stories because you have nothing else to talk about because the order doesn't change. But a 9 horse race, there's always movement. There's something going on.
Do you feel that you'll be a little nervous opening day? Or are you
Not
so
really.
used to it now?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in horse racing now since 2013, so
oh, wow.
And been on air since 2014. So I've been speaking publicly in horse racing for a while.
Yeah.
So the nerves aren't really there. It's really like you said though, like my voice. It's just calling a race that long. I haven't called 14 races in a day. You know what I mean? So it's going to be new.
Get the tea out, the hot tea and honey, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I've been to Derby Day at Tioga Downs numerous times. It's such a fun event. What other things? Maybe we've got people that always want to see the Derby. Maybe they're not so familiar with horse racing in general. What kind of events do you have going on for everyone on Saturday?
Yeah, it's a nice day. The facility will be, it's going to look good. It always does on Derby Day. We really dial it up pretty nice.
And the people look good.
Yeah, it's historically like fashion and horse racing goes together. So especially on Kentucky Derby Saturday, people get dressed up regardless wherever you are. I've worked at multiple racetracks on Kentucky Derby Saturday. Everyone gets dressed up. That's what it is. It's fashion's kind of part of horse racing. So yeah, people look good. The place will look good. We have a T-shirt giveaway on opening day. We're going to give away magnet calendars. One lucky fan will win a $500 bet on one horse to win the Kentucky Derby.
Oh, wow.
We'll give that away after the first race, so get there early so you can enter to win that free bet on the Derby. We'll actually have that person place the bet live on air so everyone can kind of see what horse and kind of back the winner.
Oh, that's
kind
great.
of cheer them home. It should be fun. Of course, it's an absolute crapshoot in the Derby, but
right.
no matter what opinion you have, it's always very hard. But that's a nice little promotion as well. But we play games. We kind of run racing very differently from most racetracks.
You do.
We're kind of blessed to be able to have different promotions. I kind of run it like I used to run minor league baseball promotions. Like in between every race, we're playing games, we're doing something with the crowd. So there's never a dull moment at Tioga.
Well, it makes it so easy to bring the family too, because the track is such a fun family event, really.
Yeah, that's just it. I come from, I think we discussed this last year, I come from thoroughbred racing. People say, what do you like better? Well, thoroughbred racing is faster. So the racing might be, you might edge toward that to more excitement. But most harness tracks, are half mile, we're 5/8. So for the most part, when they're on the back, unless they're on the back stretch in the turn, I can almost call a race without binoculars. You can see the whole race. It unfolds in front of you. I grew up going to Belmont Park, right? I think last time I was here, I talked Belmont Stakes with you.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I couldn't remember. I thought it was Belmont. Yes.
Yeah, I talked Belmont with you. This year we're talking Derby.
We're kicking it off.
I grew up going to Belmont, right? So Belmont, beautiful, loved going there. But you see like a 16th mile. That's all you see. You see like the last end of the stretch.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I know.
So at least harness racing, it's all right there. You see the whole race. You're on top of the action.
I know. I went to the Preakness one year. It's funny. You had to stake out your ground, and when the horses went by, you're like, all right.
And that's it.
That's
right?
it.
That's all you see.
You have to
I
look
know.
up at the screen. But
so with harness racing, you really get to see a lot more of the race.
So what does the summer look like at Tioga Downs?
Yeah, I mean, we got, every year I kind of pile on more promotions. So this year we're doing even more. Some new things too. We bring out like an animal exhibit every year, which is nice. We've started kind of building our dog race promotions. Most racetracks do like a weeder dog race.
Right,
so that's kind of very popular.
Fun. Yeah.
We do. It's very popular. We do that on Labor Day. We'll leave a $1 hot dog special that day. But last year we introduced the bulldog racing on Father's Day, so we're going to bring that back.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, you don't want to race dogs that can actually run. You
right.
want to race dogs that are short, chubby, like that's what you want.
Yeah,
so
of
the
course.
bulldog races, that was cute. We're bringing that back on Father's Day. I'm introducing Basset Hound racing.
Oh, that's great.
So
I
don't know how many are in the area we can get, but if I can get 20 dogs and have 2 races and a final, that would be good enough.
That's hilarious.
So the dog race promotions are great. We give away lawn care. I'm bringing out the amazing Tyler. He's a traveling act. He balances everything on his head.
Oh, cool.
I'm going to see if he can balance a race bike on his head. He says if he can lift it, he can balance it. But it's very cool. It's cool to see him in person. Play always with 3 firework nights. So the promotions are, every day we're doing something.
Something, right.
Which is nice, unlike most racetracks.
So what does your typical race day look like?
Race day is mostly set up. I kind of oversee the racing department. So I'm getting everything ready from making sure everyone's good in the paddock staffing, make sure they're all good. I make sure all the promotions are set up properly. So it's mostly just set up and prep for the race day. But then from I call it a show, right? Like
Right.
most racetracks, they race. We do a show. Right?
Right.
So I always say our show goes live half an hour before the races.
Right.
And that's what it is. Everything's scripted. Between the races is scripted. When we end the day, I thank my production crew. Good show. I don't say, good, it's a good show. That's what we're doing.
It is a show. Yeah. What time would you recommend people arrive so that they don't miss any of the excitement?
Well, Kentucky Derby Saturday. Tomorrow we're going to start the Derby hat contest. Is going to start at 2. Sorry, I don't think I mentioned that.
Yeah,
There's a Derby hat
I
contest.
didn't want to bring it up. I thought maybe you got rid of it. That was my favorite
No,
part.
yes, there's so much going on. It's, a day before opening day, so my head's everywhere. The Derby hat contest starts at 2. You can check it at the Players Club for that. We're going to announce the winner. We'll line them up and pick a winner at just after the show goes live at 4:20.
Okay.
So you have about 2 hours to get entered in the Derby hat contest. So I would say at least get there by 2. Truth is, Kentucky Derby card starts at 10:30, and if you're a horse player, the whole betting card. I think it kicks off with a maiden race going for $120,000.
Isn't that crazy?
It's wild how much
people
money.
only focus on that one race, but
Right.
it really is a whole day.
The whole card, it's like it's an entire stakes card.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For the most part, it's all stakes, and these are top horses from around not just the country, the world.
Right.
They ship in for this day. So if you're a horse player, it's the best betting card you're ever going to get.
Well, let's talk about the Kentucky Derby. When you're looking at horses, and this isn't just at the Derby, but also at Tioga, what do you look for in a horse that you're thinking about betting?
In terms of betting a race at Tioga, where it's mostly overnight racing. We have plenty of stakes days. We have New York Sire Stakes action, probably 7 days this year.
Wow.
The Empire Breeders' Classic. We have a lot of good stakes action. But in terms of every day betting an overnight race, I'm a class handicapper, so I'm always looking for not just what class they're coming out of, but who was in the race.
Okay.
Because a certain class, I'm not going to get too technical.
Sure.
I'm not sure a lot of your viewers might know the technicalities, but a non-winners of 3,000, that's a condition in horse racing and harness racing. It could come up very different based on who's in the race. You might have a lot of good horses that fell into it that day, or a lot of weak horses. So you really have to, if you really want to dive into handicapping, you really have to focus on who's in the race and dig into each one of those horses' past performances to see what kind of competition was in that field. And I'm a big class guy, so I look for class droppers all the time. Who's coming out of a much tougher race into an easier spot on race day.
Okay. Now, how long do you spend on something like that?
Depends on the card.
It
really does. Yeah. I put out a tip sheet every day in the program. My tip sheet's in the Tioga Downs program. We have a handicapper who gives out tips as well. I might spend about an hour on an overnight card. On a stakes card, I'll spend a lot more time.
Oh, okay.
Because I want to watch more replays and get trip notes and see what happened to because you can't see a race program for people who have not seen it is intimidating.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
You've seen it.
Yeah, of course.
It can be intimidating.
Yeah.
But even that for a horse player is sometimes not enough.
Sure.
There's so much information in it, but you actually want to go back and watch replays.
Right.
You want to see what happened in that race.
What's the old book, The Race Form?
Daily Racing Form. Sure.
It's crazy when you get one of those.
There's a lot in there.
It looks like if they gave that to you in a college course, you'd probably drop the course.
Right, but conversely, my dad showed me when I was a kid. And you learn it when you're young, and it's easy now because I learned it when I was so young. Right. So
that's how you got to do it.
If you start your kids reading the program when they're young, it's going to be pretty easy for them.
Good bedtime reading for your child. What now on Derby Day? Who are you looking? Not we don't want to give the tip away yet, but what are you looking for in a horse, or are you looking at jockeys? What's your main focus when it comes to Derby Day?
Historically, and it's sad to say, and it's kind of common knowledge. Horses coming out of aqueduct races, the Wood, for instance, there's no farewell. Horses coming from overseas get overbet and they haven't farewell, and you always want those horses to win. I'd love to see the Dubai Derby winner win. I'd love to see the horse from Japan win. You know what I mean? But they just don't. I don't know why. And don't get me wrong. If I lose to those horses, fine. I'm happy to see.
So be it. Yep.
Because you want that worldwide presence. Historically, you got to be close. It's just not historically. I should say, last few years, last decade, you have to be close because. It's just the breeding has been bred for speed, and these horses they don't stop anymore.
No,
historically, you say I don't want to bet the front runner. They're not gonna get swallowed up. They keep going. So it's hard to bet against those horses with early speed.
Now we had a viewer comment earlier because I posed a question who they would pick, and they were talking about how great Fierceness did. What was it, the Florida Derby?
Florida Derby.
Yeah. So, do you think, looking at the odds, Fierceness is clearly the favorite?
Right.
Is that smart money to you? I don't want to put words in your mouth. I mean, who are you looking at? Let's word it that way. Who are you looking at in the Derby?
It's hard because you don't want to, you don't want to get married to the favorite, right? Especially And I'm worried Fierceness. Now, look, Fierceness could win, and it would be a surprise to nobody. But the horse in the Florida Derby won by the length of the stretch. It wasn't even a race. It was incredible. And, you got Pletcher, John Velasquez. John Velasquez, he won the Derby with Always Dreaming, who won the Florida Derby. So it's the same path again for Fierceness this year. That was only, 3 or 4 years ago. But Fierceness is going to be, 5-2, 3-1 favorite.
Yeah.
And in a race where you're going to get horses at 40-1 who have a chance to win.
Right.
How do you bet a horse at 3-1? You could bet a race at Tioga, I get 3-1. You know what I mean?
Right.
And win all day. But you don't want to take the Derby horse at 3-1, So that's kind of hard. But having said that, probably the most interesting horse in the race, right?
Yeah.
Early speed. I just said that speed is great. Right. The horse that go to the top might not get caught. They just keep going these days, and he could be that horse. Of course, guys, the 17 post, that's a big story right now.
Right.
No horse won the Derby out of the 17 post. Of course,
I love those stats like that. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, does it mean anything? I don't know. But
history making. He wins. You can see the headline already.
Of course, but at the same time, maybe the best horse hasn't been in the 17.
Yeah,
post.
exactly.
So there's always a reason for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely has a chance.
Yeah, so it's just going to be interesting because I'm a sucker for long shots, and if you put $2 on every long shot here, you're going to have a lot of money in that.
Yeah, there's too many to bet every. Yeah, you can't just bet the field and hope to catch a price. You won't make much of a profit. It's not really the best bet. But honestly, I love back wheeling a favorite, and what that means is playing the field over a favorite.
Yeah.
I don't know what year it was, but there was just like a 80-1 winner. What year was that? 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right, over the favorite, and the exact paid like $700.
Yeah.
And you just hit the back wheel of favorite for a $20 bet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a good way to
bet.
So
there's plenty of fun plays in the Derby.
There is so many options, and that's what makes the Derby so fun, though, right?
Yeah.
It can be anybody's. It's the puncher's chance, right? It could be any horse because when you have a field this large, you never know what can happen.
Well, especially handicappers like myself who like to look at race shape and like to figure where the horses are during the race and how the race is going to unfold, and you try to predict that. And as a handicapper betting overnight races, when you see that, when you say, okay, these two are going to go, this is going to sit third, I think this horse has a chance, probably takes over the top of the stretch. If the speed duel unfolds and they back out of it, and you see that happen and you win, great. The race shape in the Derby is always completely different because you don't have 20 horses. You can't predict race shape when you have 20 horses.
Right.
You're just doing the best you can.
Right.
And if you're right, great. But yes, any horse can win the Kentucky Derby. Absolutely.
What do you think for maybe new gamblers out there? What do you think the best bet for your money is? I know this is tough questions because you kind of get in the weeds with all of this, but is there a bet that you would tell people to maybe Google search on how to do it?
I mean, for my money, I tell all beginners, pick a horse and bet win place.
Yeah.
If you bet $5 win place, it costs you $10. And you have interest in the race.
Yeah.
It's hard because you don't want. If I tell someone, let's bet an exacta box, for instance, right? That's the most common thing people preach. You're actually making 5 losing bets, right? You're making 6. If you bet a 3-horse exacta box, you're making 5 losing bets. So it's hard to preach, go make losing bets.
Right. How do you sell that to people? Yeah.
Right. It's hard to sell that. But win place, I don't like playing win place show because you get a new bettor and they go, oh, I got my show bet and they won 20 cents and they're like,
they don't want to do it anymore.
What's this about? Why would I bet horse racing? But win place, you got a chance to at least make a decent profit and you're rooting one horse home.
Yeah. Do you have a typical bet that you make or does it just depend on the day?
I'm a multi-race bettor.
Oh, okay.
So I like betting the pick 4, pick 5. And this year, we're introducing a pick 5 at Tioga. Brand new this year. Yeah, which is really nice.
Yeah.
In the state of New York, even though it's in discussion, the pick 4 can't carry over, but a pick 5 can.
Oh.
And that means when it's not hit, after takeout, 100% is carried over. So we just had...
That gets up there.
Right, and it can just keep adding up day over day. I mean, you could be chasing, $20,000 by week 3.
Right.
It could be there, which is really nice. So the pick 5 is going to start in the first race every day. That's the standard. Races 1 through 5 every day on the card is a pick 5. If it doesn't get hit, it's 100% carryover, which is really nice.
That is great.
And it's new. I mean, we just introduced it at Vernon Downs, our sister track. They started 2 weeks earlier than us. The first day there was $1,000 in the pool. It's not a lot, but it's there was some interest there. And guess what? It carried over. So it was $700 carryover. And that just builds and builds.
Builds and builds, yeah. And it's kind of fun because for people that don't know, you're picking the winner of each of the first 5 races. But it's almost like, if you want to think of it this way, for those that play the lotto, you can do it like a lotto ticket almost. And think of it that way because the money does get up there pretty good. You make a couple bets, you like a couple horses. Who knows?
Right, exactly. I should explain that. How
pick
5 works. Yeah, sorry,
okay.
but yes, it's picking the winner of 5 straight races, and it doesn't mean you have to pick 1 horse every race.
Yeah.
You could put 3 horses in a race, 5 horses in a race. Your ticket will add up, obviously.
Yeah.
But you could build a nice ticket with a pick 5.
Why do you think it is? So during COVID, because it was the only live sporting event, I got hooked on TVG. You ever watch TVG?
Sure. I work with the Meadowlands. I'm usually a guest on there.
Yeah,
on
that's
Friday
right.
and Saturday nights. Sure.
Why is it always that the experts like you always like doing the pick 4s and pick 5s? That's what that is. It just because it makes it more fun for you?
For me, it's
bigger wins.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. If I love an exacta, I'll hammer. I say these are the only 2 horses in the race. I might just box them up and hammer that exacta.
Right,
Those are the 2 horses. In some order, I'm going to hit that. But for me, like a pick 4, pick 5, not only because the money adds up and you can cash a bigger ticket. As you knock out favorites, right? As favorites lose, there's people who say I'm going to single this favorite. For instance, let's say you're playing a Kentucky Derby, pick 4 sequence, pick 5 sequence throughout, whatever it is. And you have, and you leave fierceness off your ticket. You say that's bad favorite. But a lot of people might single a horse like that.
Right.
So all of a sudden those tickets are gone.
Yeah.
And there's more money in the pool for you.
Right.
So that's why you like to try to beat favorites. I love throwing favorites off my ticket. And when favorites win, so be it.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? I took a shot against the favorite. I thought it was a bad favorite.
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like your money lasts when you play a pick 4. If I'm having a day with my family at the racetrack, I might bet a pick 4. And if I'm live in a ticket, I'll sit back and let them. They'll play the win place bet, and I'll just be riding out my pick 4 ticket.
Yeah,
it's nice.
It makes it fun. Do you have just before we go? Do you have a favorite long shot
in the
Derby?
In the Derby, all right.
It could be completely based on name. It doesn't matter.
Based on name,
whatever you want.
Well, like my heart is in domestic product, the winner of the Tampa Bay Derby.
Okay.
This year during the Tampa Bay Derby, I spent 7 years at Tampa.
Okay.
Tampa Bay Derby this year, there was a tote outage during the Derby.
Okay.
Literally nobody could bet the Tampa Bay Derby.
Wow.
Right? The whole system went down. It was countrywide. It wasn't just Tampa, but it just happened the race before the Tampa Bay Derby went down.
Wow.
So my heart breaks for all my friends in Tampa and my former staff there that I worked with. So for them to have a horse win the Derby would be tremendous. You know what I mean? So
almost,
I'd love to see it.
Going out 30-1 too.
Yeah, probably. The thing is though, if you look at the past performances and the morning line odds of the Derby, because Sierra Leone's 3-1, Fierce is 2-1. Most years the Derby favorites 5-1, 6-1 on the program.
Yeah.
So every other, the odds are inflated for all the other horses. So you're going to get a good price if you beat the favorite this year.
It's going to be a fun because it's the 150th racing in the Kentucky Derby. Isn't that
it's always nice to be
it's gonna be fun.
Kind of a landmark, a milestone anniversary for sure. Really good race. Brad Cox has 2. He backed into a win with Mandaloon when Medina Spirit was disqualified.
Yeah.
So, he's looking for another Derby win. He's got a big chance as well. I think Just a Touch is a pretty nice horse. So we'll see how it pans out.
And you have an exciting day. Do you get to take it all in at least a little bit?
Or we take the break for the Derby, which is nice. I get to leave the announcer's booth and talk with some of the fans, and I like doing that. I like when I see people come to the track, I love thanking them for coming. It's important,
of course,
that we have fans who appreciate our staff as well. I think we have a great staff this year, so I'm looking forward to opening day.
Well, thanks so much, Shades, for being on the show. We'll have you on again maybe for Preakness.
I'd love to come back. Sure, I love it out here.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thanks so much.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. Stay with us. Beautiful view of Market Street. I want to thank Shades for being on the program during the Steuben Senior Services Fund interview. That was a lot of fun. I hope we have Derby fans out there. I know I get a little bit nerdy when it starts talking about horses. I enjoy that conversation, so I kept Shades a little long, and I hope that you found it informative and that you can make it out Tioga Downs. We were talking about Trump's potential VP pick. He's having a meeting at Mar-a-Lago this weekend with potential VP nods. But before that, I've received some comments during that break. First one, this is interesting. I've had 2 people comment about this. And they're not really any kind of comment of what's going on, just why is it going on? Another Boeing whistleblower has died. The first man committed suicide in his truck in a parking lot the night before he was supposed to give a deposition. And the second man quickly succumbed to MRSA after being diagnosed with pneumonia, also before he could be deposed. We're not saying anything more than that is the news. But yes, you are the second person to comment on that, and I haven't had a chance to mention the other one. Next. Where is Chuck Schumer? He can't speak up for Jewish students in his state, in the state he claims to represent. He jumps at any soundbite opportunity to state the obvious. Fair point. I know he has been very quiet. I know he did say something. Was it about the anti-Semitic bill? I can't remember what it was, but it hasn't been as prevalent as is normal from Chuck Schumer. Another comment. Trump is doing the right thing and keeping his VP pick quiet for now. The media would shift to that news and try to use it to distract from the Democrats' failures. There will be less time for them to run their smear campaign, which is a given. Yes, that is a given. So whoever he picks, and you can say he better pick someone squeaky clean. It doesn't matter. I mean, look at the things that they've said. What was it, Mitt Romney? And listen, I don't like Mitt Romney. But when Mitt Romney ran, do you remember when they went back and interviewed classmates from elementary school or something that he was a bully? So it doesn't matter. But according to this piece from Fox News, among these special guests at Mar-a-Lago, this weekend who could be possible running mates. You've got Senator Tim Scott. I like Tim Scott a lot. In full disclosure, I interviewed him a few years, probably 5 years ago now. Very nice guy. Tim Scott of South Carolina. J.D. Vance of Ohio. His name's been thrown around quite a bit. And Marco Rubio of Florida. That's interesting. Marco has been pretty outspoken defender of Trump. I have my ups and downs with Marco Rubio. That would be interesting after how brutal Trump was to Marco Rubio in 2016. That one, it surprised me. But every time they come up with this new list, and again, it's anonymous sources, a new list of VP potential, it's always, there's somebody on there that you go, wow, I didn't think of that. Like last time we heard maybe perhaps Lee Zeldin. His name not on the list yet. On this Mar-a-Lago trip, you also have Governor Doug Burgum of North Dakota and Kristi Noem of South Dakota, though, again, anonymous sources say that Kristi Noem is most likely out of the running after that story about shooting her dog. Two top Trump supporters in the House, Representative Elise Stefanik of New York and Byron Donalds of Florida, will also be there, as will, to give this a little bit of hope to one of our viewers out there, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy. Also attending the gathering are the recently Trump-installed leadership at the RNC, as well as House Speaker Mike Johnson. These are not people in the running for VP, I don't believe, but Mike Johnson will also be attending. So there you go, just a little bit of inside baseball. Did you notice yesterday, a lot of people are upset about this, Biden called Japan xenophobic? It's a weird one. The election is about freedom, America, and democracy. That's why I badly need you. You know, one of the reasons why our economy is growing is because of you and many others. Why? Because we welcome immigrants. Why is China stalling so badly economically? Why is Japan having trouble? Why is Russia? Why is India? Because they're xenophobic. Wow. By the way, is our economy doing that great? They don't want immigrants. Immigrants are what makes us strong. Not a joke. Why does he always say not a joke? I'm going to get him out of that habit. That's not hyperbole, because we have an influx of workers who want to be here and want to contribute. Sometimes you wonder about when the people around Biden think about with optics and like that, and about what immigration is a number one concern of voters. I don't know. Sometimes the timing on things is very confusing. We got to take another short break because I did run a little long with our friend Shade. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, weigh in on your VP pick. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. As I mentioned earlier, if you're down on Market Street this weekend or after the program, make sure to stop by. We'll have our picture there, our painting, I should say, of Dwayne Eddy in the window. I realized I didn't give a proper introduction to, we call him Shades, that's his nickname, Andrew Dremsky. That's his real name from Tioga Downs. We want to thank him again for being on the program. Comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Good morning. I think Dr. Ben Carson would be a good choice for VP, as well as Sarah Sanders and Doug Burgum is interesting to me. Okay, let's go through each of those. That's a great, I think Dr. Carson is brilliant. I was just talking to somebody the other day. He gave a great speech. I want to say it was, I went and saw him of all places, Ithaca. Gave a great speech. I wonder where he's been lately. Am I missing him? And I say this seriously. Has he been giving a lot of interviews and statements? I have not seen him around in a while. I was actually having this conversation with someone not that long ago. Sarah Sanders, first of all, I think it's funny because at first when you said Sarah Sanders, I couldn't think of who you meant because I'm so used to saying Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Yes, that would be a good pick. She's a fighter. I do like Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And Doug Burgum is interesting as well. I don't know. I'll be in full disclosure. Don't know a ton about Doug Burgum. So all interesting picks. Keep those VP nods coming in. We have, where do I want to go from here? Speaking of Trump, oh, wow. Did you see this poll, though? A plurality of a Harvard-Harris poll found that a plurality believes President Joe Biden is getting worse as president. The survey asked respondents, do you think Joe Biden is improving as president, getting worse, or staying the same? A plurality, 47%, said Biden is actually, quote, getting worse as president, while just 29% believe he is improving. About a quarter, 24%, believe he is staying the same. And a different poll, the Economist YouGov poll, shows that a majority of Americans see former President Trump as a strong leader, while most see President Biden as a weak leader, according to a poll. A majority of 58% of adults say that Trump is a strong leader, 58, including a plurality of 35% who see him as very strong. Very interesting. Trump visited a Manhattan fire department, FDNY, firehouse, to Cheers on Thursday. He delivered pizza. He went to FDNY's Engine Company 8, Ladder Company 2 in Midtown with 2 Zeno pizza boxes in hand around 5:30. The campaign had dropped off 10 boxes of different pizzas, including pepperoni. What a weird thing to add in there. Different pizzas, including pepperoni, for the hungry first responders prior to his arrival. "You gotta win," one firefighter told him. "Sir, save us, please," another implored. The presumptive Republican nominee for president chatted with the firefighters, posed for photos, and signed a daybook and other items during the 10-minute campaign stop. "I love you all. Special people," he said, above his signature. The pizza was long gone before the New York Post caught up with the first responders. "It was good. We enjoyed it. It's always special when a president shows up at a place that you work." So we've got to take another short break. Stay with us. I know, moving fast here. I can't believe this whole week's went fast. We've had such a great time. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. Thank you for all the comments and the waves this morning. I think we're having a really good time. According to John McLaughlin, the voter gender gap is a bigger issue for Biden than Trump. Ever since the Democrats needed to find a small sliver of hope before Walter Mondale and his 1984 loss to Ronald Reagan, they would often point to the gender gap among voters. Yes, there was a gap. Reagan won men 62% to 38%, but also won among women 58% to 42%. There was an 8-point gap, but Mondale got crushed overall. Today, 40 years later, as Republican Donald Trump leads incumbent Joe Biden, the liberal media point to the same gulf. According to the media's 2020 exit polls, Trump beat Biden among men 53 to 45%. Biden won among women by a wider margin, 57 to 42. But the issue is more complex and nuanced than the liberal spin portrays it. Partly, marital status and education are more defining than gender for voters. More distressing to liberal Democrats are the breakthroughs for Trump among minority voters, especially men. Now, according to the recent April national poll of 1,000 likely voters for McLaughlin and Associates, among all voters, Trump leads Biden 49% to 45%. Some more recent media polls give President Trump an even bigger lead. What the liberal Biden spinners fail to mention is that among all men, Trump leads 54 to 41, up a net 6 points from 2020. But among women, Trump has cut Biden's 15-point lead in 2020 to a mere 4 points. Biden barely wins 48% to 44. Sure, there's a gap, but not one that will make a difference. The gender gap is more a Biden deficit among men rather than a Trump deficit among women. This is a lot different than what you're hearing in the media. As you know, you've seen the coverage yourself. I thought it was a very interesting piece. John McLaughlin is a CEO of survey research firm McLaughlin and Associates, which does polling for the Trump campaign. So keep that in the back of your mind. But you can find that for yourself at the New York Post. Do you want to talk? I don't really want to talk about the hush money trial unless you want to. Let me know. I think you've seen the coverage elsewhere. I'm sure you're good on that. Did you see that Lindsey Graham? This is where we're going to get a little wacky here on the Friday edition at the end as we try to breeze through some things before we run out of time. Lindsey Graham has to turn over his phone. This guy can't catch a break. His phone might have been hacked by someone that was impersonating Chuck Schumer. Lindsey Graham relinquished his cell phone to authorities after communicating with someone who impersonated Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. The sergeant at arms is investigating a possible hack of Senator Graham's phone, his spokesperson said. On Monday, the sergeant at arms reportedly warned members of a phishing scheme. Graham, who's 68, recounted the ordeal during a discussion about artificial intelligence. "You know, my phone is in the hands of the FBI now. So I get a message, I think, from Chuck Schumer. It ain't from Schumer. And next thing you know, my phone's, I don't know what. Anything you can create apparently can be hacked." What's interesting is Schumer's known for using a vintage flip phone. Interesting. That used to be the case. Do you remember this? In 2015, Former President Donald Trump revealed his cell phone number, meaning Lindsey Graham's cell phone number, to the world as the two bitterly sparred on the campaign trail. Do you remember that? Graham later cut a video of himself using samurai skills while obliterating his old flip phone, slashing it with a kitchen knife, burning it, and tossing it to the blender, among other acts of destruction. Notably, it is possible to change phone numbers without destroying the original cell phone. Boy, that was a funny time. All right, let's take our last break, and we're going to wrap things up. A couple other questions to get to at the end. Love to hear from you. Get your choice in for VP. What do you think would happen if Cuomo decides to face Hochul in 2016, or do you think he should go a different avenue? What would you assume he's going to run for? Maybe I should put it that way. And I think that's enough questions for one day. Though, if you do want to make your pick just based on the name, who do you like for the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby? We heard from Shades, and he's got a couple of thoughts. I do have to say, there's a few, just based on pure name. I like the name Catching Freedom, and I also like the name Forever Young because of the Bob Dylan song. And I don't know. Fiercelessness, obviously the clear favorite. All right, we just got another wave, and let's take a short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Hakeem Jeffries may be the most powerful man in Congress. Do you agree? The minority leader of the House Democrats is what Jeffries, who provided the votes needed to keep the government running despite opposition from Republicans to prevent a shutdown. Jeffries, who made sure Democrats delivered the tally to send $95 billion foreign aid to Ukraine and other allies. And Jeffries, who, with the full force of House Democrat leadership behind him, decided this week his party would help Mike Johnson stand the job rather than be ousted by far-right Republicans led by Marjorie Taylor Greene. Those are the kind of headlines that the media love when you start to hear Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that next week she's going to look at that vote on Mike Johnson. Kristi Noem, I mentioned this earlier. We're done with breaks. Okay. Kristi Noem calls the dog shooting report fake news, but insists she still needed to kill the animal, which I think most people, at least that were predisposed to maybe supporting her or liking her or not having a problem with her as pick, understand that in certain circumstances, of course, that's with a farm dog, I guess, would be but not the way she presented it. That it was just she didn't like the dog. This is, going back to what Miranda Devine said, this is an issue that has kind of united everybody on the left and the right. She said, you know how the fake news works. They leave out some of the facts of a story. They put the worst spin on it, and that's what happened in this case. I hope people really do buy this book and they find out the truth of the story, because the truth of the story is that this was a working dog, and it was not a puppy. It was a dog that was extremely dangerous. All right. Just giving you an update on that. Oh, here we go. We got a viewer that has selected horse 8. Just a touch. Liking, that's good as horse as any. There we go. Horse 8 going out 10-1. Some money to be had there. So thank you for that. You can make your last minute predictions for the 150th, running of the Kentucky Derby. I cannot believe we're out of time. The Anti-Defamation League CEO Jonathan Greenblatt urged President Joe Biden to encourage campuses to coordinate with law enforcement to restore order on campus. It's too late to ask questions. Well, you can always respond, but I was not overly impressed, and I'm guessing maybe the media wasn't either overly impressed with Biden's response to this, because once he gave it, there was a quick news piece on it, and then it was relatively buried by other stories of the day. I don't think it was the forceful leadership speech that you wanted to see from a president. Meghan McCain, who, she pontificates a lot. She shared a photo of a vandalized George Washington statue, saying this image is Trump's most powerful attack ad, handed to him on a silver platter by radical progressives. And George Washington was draped with a Palestinian flag, had the wrap on his head, plastered it with anti-Israel stickers. Biden says dissent must not lead to disorder, and his support for Israel remains unwavering. Well, I wouldn't say unwavering. Schumer, by the way, is poised, because someone mentioned Schumer earlier, poised to join Mike Johnson to invite Netanyahu to address Congress. All right, we are out of time. Thank you to everybody who reached out today and had great conversation. Thank you to everybody who had such kind words to say about Dwayne Eddy. And you can come take your picture with that amazing painting by David Higgins. Please join us on Monday morning starting at 6. And by the way, let me just say good luck to all of you that will be placing a wager on the Kentucky Derby, and thank you to our guest, Andrew Shades Dremsky, for being in on the program to give us his favorites. Have a great weekend, a fun, safe weekend, and we will see you Monday morning starting at 6 a.m. with Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early.